Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are. With Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is... yes.
Clone Force 99 infiltrated the orbital station with former Vice Admiral Rampart.
Where are they now?
They fled aboard a stolen shuttle when the science vessel departed.
You're not authorized to be here. This area is under my jurisdiction.
Well, I was, checking the manifest.
What is going on here?
Run a diagnostic on SP-54.
Affirmative. I have a plan, and I'm gonna need your help.
This is Vanessa Marshall, Harrison Dula from Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Here we are. I never thought I'd say this, but we're on the penultimate episode of Star Wars The Bad Batch. We've just got this episode and one episode left. Of course, I've got two dynamic co-hosts that are going to join me as we break down this episode. It is the episode 14. It is called Flash Strike, so no Shakespeare for me to quote today. As far as I know, Into the Breach just kind of suited itself really well. But let's bring in our guests first. Joining me on every episode of Star Wars The Bad Batch, the one and only Mason Zehr. Mason, welcome back, buddy.
Great to be back again.
Yes. Well, thank you. You continue to pass the audition, and appreciate everyone reaching out about the great work Mason is doing. I'm very proud of him. He has not been on for a while, but that's not because we don't love him to pieces, because we do. So we had to have him on, the one and only Neil Baker. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, Dan. How you doing?
Doing very well. It's good to see you. Neil and I we've known each other for all the way back to the MySpace days.
MySpace, hyperspace, yeah, the good old days as we refer to them.
That's right. And Neil always had, we did of course, the stars.com blogs, or stars.com, the hyperspace message boards. They had blogs that you could do. And Neil's were always hilarious.
Man, I put so much effort into those. I loved it, though. It was different things going on. And then you had the regular roster of people that would just do the most amazing blogs on there. So I've got very fond memories. I'm using the Wayback Machine to recapture some of them and save them forever because happy memories.
I'm glad. I was just going to ask. I hope you've got everything on file. Excellent. All right, well, let's talk about this as we do each and every week. When we review an episode of anything Star Wars, we give one word and overall reactions before we really break it down. Mason, what's the one word you would use for Flash Strike and overall reactions?
So my one word is loyalty, because the amount of times the Bad Batch could turn back and say, no, this isn't safe, and the amount of times Echo could turn back and anyone can turn back, but they keep going to get Omega.
I love it. You always have a very good word that always very much spotlights the theme of the episode. Neil, if you could use one word to describe Flash Strike, what would you use in your overall thoughts on the episode?
I would say growth for a few reasons. One is obviously the growth of Omega and how she's become a true member of the Bad Batch and using all the skills that she's learned as she's grown, but also Crosshair, the growth of his character and his character arc, and then quite literally the growth of a certain Zillow monster that we saw kind of being zapped and being forced to grow there. So overall, it's just interesting. Now, as for the episode itself, I really enjoyed. I am enjoying all the episodes. I have a couple of small qualms, but it's not taken away from the joy of watching these.
Very good. Is there a difference between a qualm and a quibble? What's the difference?
I think it's just vocabulary. It's just, I think, yeah, but you're right. I mean, it's like a quibble, or I don't know. Quibble is maybe more of a nitpick, and a qualm.
Quibble seems more whimsy. Yeah, I like it. So. Go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead.
I would say for this, my word is breakneck. The pacing and the speed of this thing, this is just packed full of adrenaline. You don't really get much of a chance to take an exhale. And just when you think you do, there's a confrontation that maybe you weren't expecting to happen quite so soon. I'm referring to Emery and Echo at the end. But there's some great pieces of dialogue, some very subtle character stuff. And what the show continues to do for me is it continues to up the ante of how to tell a great story with dynamic characters that grow and evolve through the storytelling process, and not because of some expository or some big oratory composition. It just happens through their choices, through their actions. It's just a master class in characterization, and I absolutely love it. One thing we've been doing, and by the way, I'm glad you mentioned Zilla Beast. Well, we're going to jump all over the place. We don't have to go in a linear fashion by any stretch of the imagination. When I watch this, I try to pick guests I think will have an extra special interest in it. And when I saw the Zilla Beast, I thought, well, Neil's got to come on. Because you're a big kaiju guy, right? And you've always liked the Zilla Beast, if memory serves.
Absolutely. I mean, it's other than Star Wars, it's big giant monsters for me. So to know that Zilla Beast is going to be guest starring next week, I assume, in quite a major fashion. I mean, it's kind of very exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there.
If you don't mind, catch us up. The Zilla Beast was on a pretty significant episode in season 2 of the Bad Batch. Kind of catch us up on what happened there and what it might mean.
So if you recall that the Zilla, this is where we actually found out that electricity makes them grow in that episode. While it was being zapped, it was growing every time. And if memory serves, it was being captured. The batch, I think, did they release it accidentally, or was it already released? I'm going. It
was in a spaceship. It was almost like aliens.
That's right. Yeah. And then, but ultimately, I mean, the most important part of the episode was, other than all the shenanigans that go on, was the fact that the Empire takes the beast and carts it away, and we understand that this is on the orders of the Emperor, and we all start to suspect why he's doing that. And we know that it's resistant to lightsabers. We saw that in even the earlier episode, in the Clone Wars, and it's resistant to blaster fire. So obviously he's trying to do something with its armor, and that really is quite a hideous thought, to think that they're taking this beast and they're rearing it, raising it up, and then basically harvesting its scales. And it's an absolutely perfect way of showing the difference between the Empire and nature, which again, actually this current episode does as well. We've had that all the way through the film series and all the way through the animated series. This episode today totally showed it again with the creature in the forest and the way that the Empire's treating the beast. So I think it's really nice to know that this beast is coming up again, and it's going to maybe get a little bit revenge on the sterile Empire. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, there's a lot of richness and there's so much to pick apart in what you said that we could just do a whole podcast on just what how you open things up. The Zilla Beast, you're right. We tend to think of your initial reaction to a monster is it's a monster. Oh no, it's dangerous. It's going to destroy, and those are all true things. But sometimes you have to ask yourself: is it a monster, or is it just an animal that's reacting to its environment, and it's been pushed into a position where it's forced to fight back? It's obviously very dangerous. We don't want to get too far ahead because we're not going to speculate, but you bring up some good points about the cruelty of what's going on with this thing. And even in the quick glimpse we see of the Zilla Beast, when it's getting hit with energy, it appears to be in pain when it's hit. And I don't remember if that was what happened before. What I do remember is that when we saw the Zilla Beast in those episodes of the Clone Wars years and years ago, when he was defeated, Palpatine requested, before he was the Emperor, Palpatine requested to take the Zilla Beast to study it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's hard not to connect some dots between this and Omega and cloning and Project Necromancer, and hard not to kind of draw some parallels to Episode 9. But Jennifer Corbett, who is one of the head creators and writers of Star Wars: The Bad Batch, did post this week on Twitter a gif of Luke Skywalker saying, "This is not going to end the way you think." So just because it looks like we're going a certain direction, that doesn't mean that we are. Mason, I know you think the Zillo Beast is really fun. What are your kind of reactions to seeing the Zillo Beast, albeit briefly in this episode?
Yeah, when she was just walking through that, like, basically medical tunnel, not walking, crawling up it and through the sides, there was, like, she could barely see. And why does the Empire put those holes in there? Is it for, like, some sort of air to get to the droid medicine things? Or did Lucasfilm not really think that through and just put that there? But I liked how we did get a glimpse of the Zillo Beast.
Right, and you know, you and I know, as well as Neil and our listeners, Lucasfilm never does anything by accident. So there's some interesting ideas that you're bringing up for us. So we talked about the Zillo Beast already. I want to bring up Rampart. I think Rampart is shockingly rich and in sort of a weird way. It's almost like he's sort of us. He's almost the everyman if you're an Imperial officer and you did despicable things. But then you were put in a position where, nope, you're just like everybody else. You are something that the Empire can use. You're part of the great machine, but you're not the gears that's turning this massive, monolith that is the Empire, and as it tries to take over the entire galaxy. You're just your refuge, your waste, and he's used. So I bring this up. For one thing, every time Rampart screams, I just giggle. The voice acting is tremendous. He sounds terrified out of his mind. He doesn't sound like a mighty tough officer or a soldier in the Empire. He sounds like a scared little kid. And I don't blame him, but that's where he becomes the everyman. But the interesting thing to me about Rampart, for one thing, he's constantly getting shoved in this episode.
Yeah.
So much so that I was getting annoyed. And I understand why, because it's life or death, and they don't want him to scamper off and be a Judas and betray them. But he and Crosshair have this conversation, and Crosshair opens it with saying, he says, there was a time when you believe good soldiers followed orders. And then Crosshair says, depends on who's giving the orders, which becomes, we've both been betrayed by the Empire. And then Rampart says that he doesn't believe that Crosshair has changed, because Crosshair stops while they're walking and he says, I've changed. And then he keeps walking. And Rampart, I don't remember the exact dialogue, but Rampart looks as when Crosshair's sort of out of earshot, we're led to believe, and says, we'll see, or something to that effect. I believe that Crosshair has changed. I think Rampart maybe doesn't believe it, because Rampart has not seen good. Rampart probably hasn't changed. He hasn't had a chance to betray them, really. I don't know that he's going to, and I'm certainly not going to guess. But to me, we tend to view things that other people do psychologically through the lens of something that we would or wouldn't do. And I think that's just human nature, because that is our place of reference. But I don't know, I really find that little piece of dialogue interesting, and it's more illuminating about Rampart than it is Crosshair.
Absolutely. And I think that was put in there just to keep us on our toes, the audience, because we've been enjoying this arc of Crosshair, his redemption and rejoining his brothers. But at the back of our minds, I'm sure we've all thought, could he possibly turn again? Is this, and so there,
you mean Crosshair or Rampart?
Crosshair. I feel like they're sowing the seeds just to say, well, we've got one episode left. Something could still happen there. I think they just don't want us to keep us totally at ease, with thinking that he's totally rejoined. I mean, I could be completely wrong and totally off base, but I like to think that's what they're doing, is unless it's just a pure commentary on Rampart and the fact that as an Imperial officer, he can't believe that anybody would change. Once you're one thing, you are that thing, and that's it. But there are little things as well, like as they're approaching the mountain, and Crosshair's hand starts playing up again, and the memories of the place are coming back to him. We still don't really know what they did to him there and what's going on in his mind. Can anything be triggered again? Having said that, there's only one episode left, so we can't really explore that too heavily, but it's food for thought, I think. And I like to think so.
I do too. I still say there's if Crosshair is gonna go back, then this whole season has been a waste of time.
Yeah,
then,
agreed. Yeah, true.
And so I don't think that will happen. I hope that won't happen. And I know you feel the same. I really think it's an interesting commentary on Rampart. But maybe it could also be so much that Rampart wants to believe that you can change. Maybe he wants to believe that he can change. I don't know that he's seen kindness from the Bad Batch, but he has seen them risking everything to save Omega. And how many people have risked everything to save him, or has he seen any kind of acts of heroism like that? I don't think so. Mason, what would you say about Rampart?
Yeah, in this episode, like you said, he kind of acts like a little kid. And then my favorite part, probably the whole episode, is when I think it was Crosshair who asked Hunter if Rampart had made it out alive, and Hunter goes, "Unfortunately, yes."
And he says, I can hear you," or something like that.
I heard that.
That was an actual LOL for me. I really thought that was hilarious. Mason, what's a topic that you'd like to bring up from the episode?
Let's just talk about Omega and her specimen friends.
Okay. Yeah. What would you like to say about them?
I feel like this one, like I know in the last few, they basically all became friends. Mm-hmm. But in this one, you can definitely see that they're all bonding and how their plan is starting to form up.
And so you're maybe around their age. What is it about Omega, do you think, that, because they don't know what her history is, they don't know what kind of fighter she is, they don't know what she's faced, but what do you think it is about Omega that makes them feel like they feel safer around her?
I think there's two things. I think one, they think there's some better about her because she's not human, but closer to human than they are. And then also that she stated to them that she's escaped out of it already. True.
What do you mean by she's the human part of her? Because they all obviously have a high M count. Do you mean like how she looks?
Yeah, like she's not an alien. She's a clone, which is closer to human than the other.
Interesting. What I like, well, Neil, what do you like about this? The four of them.
I kind of liked actually what Mason was saying there, because when you think about it, the Empire is all about this kind of sterile. Everybody they had a really bad attitude towards aliens, and all the other children are aliens, and the fact that Omega looks like one of their captors in a way, I would have thought that would have put them kind of on a bad footing, to start with, because it's like, how could they trust her? They did start to trust her very quickly and easily, and also because they're younger and and they want to be trusting, and she does seem very authoritative. I did like how you can see they've got no experience with what Omega's been doing and what she's going through when she says to them, okay, if this so and so happens, cover me. And they go, what does that mean? It's like, cover you? How? And she's almost like it's, she's talking to her brothers, and these kids don't know what she means. I liked that. I like the fact that there was some lovely tension in that scene as well, when she actually goes into the shaft and does the climbing, and put me in mind of many different other movies where I've seen something like that in, but they did a really nice job of it. And the added element of these red boxes whizzing by, the sample boxes, just not only was it an element of danger, but it makes you think, well, what's in these boxes? Are these coming from other areas that, this is just one area then with these force sensitive children. So that's a little bit distressing. But overall, I thought they handled that really well. It was really nicely done. I love the fact that she recognized the sound of the laser turrets, and the thump and the tiles bouncing on the table. There's a lovely touch. Overall, I have to say, for the entire series, I just think the animation has been just unbelievable. It's been so good. And just quickly, I just want to say the thing I love most about this show is the look of it, the animation style, the environmental artists that are creating the environments. just absolutely beautiful. The sound design is so on point. It's immaculate. The music score, it's been perfection. Technically, I love it to death. I think it looks and sounds beautiful. And this was a good episode as well for showing that those ships at the beginning.
Yes.
And I'll tell you what, I mean, I'm not completely invested in the Bad Batch. I'll be honest. I'll be upfront now. I mean, it's not my favorite thing in the world. I love watching it, but it's not my favorite Star Wars content. But sure. It's like a warm blanket. Whenever I hear sound effects from the original trilogy, or engine noises, or warning sounds, or lock-on sounds, I get that fuzzy feeling that takes me back to being a 10-year-old when Star Wars came out. And I'm just like, that's what makes me feel good. So this is like it's a stew, it's like a root leaf stew for the soul. I've decided now.
Yoda's famous concoction.
Absolutely.
I think that there's a lot of texture in these backgrounds that it creates a nice atmosphere to it. And I also agree, and both of you comment on this, Omega's there's like, what is that? And Omega's like, oh, it's laser cannons. Like, of course it's laser cannons. Of course I know what that sounds like, because I've been shot at or seen this millions of times. And she creates this. I'm really interested in what you both talked about how Omega is like, she looks more human, but everybody who's been human has not been kind to them, but they still trust her anyway, because maybe the fact that she's a child and she's human, maybe that gives them a little bit of hope that maybe not all humans are bad. Is that kind of what you were thinking too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great point. I really like that. That's why we have these conversations, because they just conjure so many different fascinating ideas. Neil, what's another thing about this that worked for you or that you'd like to talk about?
I touched upon this earlier when we were talking about the Zilla Beast, but I just loved that big old creature in the jungle that initially was giving the Bad Batch a hard time, and then obviously, the troopers start to get involved, and then it just takes them out. And again, it's that theme, the constant theme that's run through all of Star Wars since, arguably since Return of the Jedi and the Ewoks. The fact that the Empire is always trying to put down nature, trying to it levels planets, it destroys planets. We saw that in what they were doing in Andor. We've seen it in other animated shows, and I love it when nature fights back. It's just that's a theme for me that I've always adored, and just especially against the Empire, I like seeing these troopers being trampled over when they foolishly fire their weapons at a beast. So that for me was a standout, and again, it just looked stunning, and just everything about that whole scene I thought was really, really nicely made. And it was Rampart that kicked it all off by laying against the beast, not even acknowledging that it was a big furry mound. That's his disdain for nature. It's just something to be used.
True.
Yeah,
that's so true. And then it comes back to bite him.
And then it goes literally. Yeah. Yeah. So that for me was a definite highlight.
What an excellent point, Mason. You actually had something really cool that we were talking about the monster before, or when we were watching the episode. What did you notice about it? What do you think it might mean?
The eyes in it were like super white, and the pupils were super small, and they were like lines, and it looks like their eyes got cut up. And it really, like Neil said, how the Empire always fights nature. That shows that the nature can fight back even when their Empire fights them.
I agree. And you also made an observation about, Mason had said to me earlier that he thought it looked like it could be blind. Did you say that?
It looked a little bit like it was blind because of how small the pupils were and how big the rest of it was.
And I've got it actually pulled up on my monitor, and it almost looks like it's glazed over the eye, which is fascinating. The biology of a fictional character in an animated show will be a good fodder for a book someday, probably. But it's an interesting idea, perhaps a metaphorical idea, and I love the design of this creature. I think we're led to believe this is the same creature from the first episode of season 3, right? Or at least a friendly cousin.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I think so. And this is what the hounds are being held by the Empire for, isn't it? Just to kind of keep them at bay. And Yeah, so Betcha, I think now that Betcha's been tamed, I don't think she's going to be much good against a monster like that anymore. But yeah, I thought it was lovely, and the way it reared up as well. It suddenly became bipedal, and then there was a really lovely element to the design of that one.
It's great. It's almost like it's got like almost like porcupine thorns, even though they're
and then
probably
grizzly
not.
Bear kind of status,
and furry and almost like a gorilla. Because Godzilla it wasn't Godzilla a combination of a gorilla. Is a gorilla and a turtle?
Gorilla and Godzilla is a combination of the Japanese words for whale and gorilla. Yeah.
Well, even better.
Yeah, Gojira. Yeah. So.
It's fascinating. I would love to talk about Godzilla -1, but we should probably
we should stick to
the three of us would have a great time talking about that for sure.
We'll be here.
Another thing I really like that I really want to talk about is Echo again. And in this episode, we do something that I don't know why I didn't think of before. I don't know what motivated it, but Echo blasts a droid, very similar to like a Death Star droid looking thing from the classic Kenner line of 1978. And then he takes the hand of the droid and attaches it to himself, and then it helps him to blend in to his environment and to blend into this persona of being an Imperial stormtrooper, right?
Yep.
And I think there's something so rich about this. I haven't quite fleshed this out, so I'm just kind of flesh it out as we're talking. But what I like about Echo, I've always found Echo to be one of the coolest members of the Bad Batch. I still think his armor design is maybe the best armor design of all of them. He experienced more trauma than anyone on the Bad Batch, except for maybe Crosshair. And his trauma was so much that he was disfigured. He's got these probes, around his head. He's missing a hand, so he's got that attachment now that he uses. I talked about at great length last week. And now it's like he takes an Imperial hand, right? The agents of chaos that, while they didn't happen in the Clone Wars, it was certainly linked to the Republic, obviously, as we know, because of the Palpatine and all his machinations and everything that he did. So they take this thing that they've been fighting against, and he uses a part of it to make himself more whole and complete. So, like, if I'm being an English teacher here, I like the idea of using pain and using things that have hurt you and connecting them to yourself and embracing them to make yourself stronger than you were before. Using your pain and your anguish and that trauma and growing to help other people. Because Echo has never acted like a victim. He's never acted bitter. Crosshair's whole thing is bitter. Although he's much more tame since he's gotten out of the base the first time. But I think that makes Echo so fascinating. And I really think if I sat down it'd make for a great blog or an essay or something, because I really think it's so symbolic that he puts that hand on there and he uses that to empower him. It to me, it's so much more than just a simple, fun little disguise that might sell some cool action figure accessories. As my lovely wife has often said, Dan, sometimes the curtains are just yellow, but not to me. They aren't. Not to me.
Yeah, and he also had that lovely moment where he could do whether you want to call it a Schwarzenegger line or a James Bond line, where he says "thanks for the hand" kind of thing. Just a nice little throw. For me, I love Echo, and I really feel like he's been underused. I'd love to have seen him be a part of more of the missions. He's been. I know he had his own story going on elsewhere, but I don't know. It's just I feel the same as you. His design is amazing. He's been through so much. The fact that he can give back now and contribute in such a special way, I would have loved to have seen him pop up in more episodes and actually get him to talk to someone. I can't remember any episodes where he's just sat and chatted with somebody. He's always just been there and done something. Every clone in the Bad Batch has had a moment where they've been able to share a feeling or a thought.
Yeah,
but I'm racking my brains trying to think of Echo. I guess it was immediately after they rescued him, and there was a few moments there, and what went on and everything. But just the times when the Batch has been sitting around, when they've been comfortable, and they've opened up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'd just love Echo to have been a part of that as well. I think, I never really saw that.
Yeah. I would like that. And he's important because of the impact he's had over the past 2 episodes. Plus, he appears to be a key component of what Rex is trying to do. And, Rex is arguably the most respected clone that we could name.
Yep.
Mason, is there anything you want to add about Echo?
Yeah, he really just goes back to my word, loyalty. He just keeps going, no matter what gets in his way. He keeps going for Omega and the rest of the batch.
Outstanding. Is Neil, you had mentioned that there are some things that you had quibbles with, or that maybe didn't work. Maybe quibble is my word. I'm getting back to my Seinfeld wordplay.
No, I think quibble is better than qualm.
Okay, so talk to me about your quibbles. Let's see what we think.
Well, this is. I mean, you know what? I don't really want to get into it too much because this is a really nice chat we're having, and I don't want to kind of like say anything negative at all.
No, I think it's more than okay to be critical without being without being a poopy. So and you're a smart guy.
Okay, then I can do it nicely. Then it's just that from the very beginning, I've enjoyed the show, but I've never been invested in the show. I've never, and the thing that really hasn't really grabbed me are the batch itself. From the very beginning, I just didn't like the fact that they seemed almost like a one-dimensional character, each one. You got the strong one, the smart one, the sneaky one, and and I wasn't keen on that, and maybe that clouded my judgment going forward. And obviously I've grown to really enjoy the interactions and stuff. But I still have problems with like Wrecker is. I know he's everybody's favorite, and he's my least favorite character. There's nothing to him. And D. Bradley Baker does an amazing job of all these voices and giving them unique personalities and making them astounding. But it's just, I don't know. I'm invested in right now. I'm invested in Crosshair and to some extent Omega. Hunter, I know he grounds everything and he's kind of the leader of it all.
Blue,
yeah, but I just don't find him very interesting. I'm not. Maybe it's just me.
No,
maybe I'm getting old and cynical. But it's so here's my dilemma: is that I love talking about it. I'm enjoying the show. I love everything that's that's coming out lately, Star Wars related. I'm very excited about all of it. Just this one, for some reason, I see other people very, very excited about the batch and buying all the figures and the figurines and getting really into it. And I just, all I buy is Greedos. that might be my problem. But it's that's my only problem is that I like it. I like the story. Oh, sorry. And my other little qualm as well is that this I haven't been keen on this one story being the entire season. I know it's important, and I know that there's a lot at stake, and I appreciate on with it, but I really feel like if they were going to do telling this story and then 5 episodes doing something else with the batch, all together, doing something, going out in a blaze of glory kind of thing. But that's just me. Again, you feel free to completely shoot me down here, but that's just how I feel. I would have liked, all the episodes have had something important to do with the story. However, I still feel like it could have been told in 10 episodes.
Okay,
this entire thing.
That's fair. No, don't be sorry. I think one of the things I've always valued and been important to me about Coffee with Kenobi, whether it's here or in the CWK Cafe or wherever we all chat, is that it's okay to disagree, right? And not to be disagreeable. And I welcome your differences of opinion. I think it's super cool. Mesa, what would you say to Neil about this? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree that the whole season there should be more than one story. And the characters, I agree with you also, they're not the most interesting, but they're still fun to watch as a group.
Well said. Well said. And that fun aspect, of course, that's a big part of it. But there's it's interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, for me, the taste for me has always been about story. If I would like a Star Wars show or an episode or a film that had no special effects, if it was a good story well told, I really would. Now, I guess you still need a space shot, or even if you held up a black piece of construction paper and poked some holes in it, looked like you were in a star field. Sure, whatever. Just give me a good story with good characters. And this has that. Now, I agree. Wrecker is not my favorite, only because I really like Crosshair, which I never thought I would say. I really liked Tech. And I like Hunter, but I liked Hunter the most in season 1. And to me, season 1 was Hunter's story, Hunter and Omega's story. Season 2 became Tech and Omega's story. And then season 3 for me is Crosshair and Omega's story. So I'm very at peace with, there's our dog. I'm very at peace with some of these characters being more one-dimensional. I was actually thinking about this week for whatever reason. And normally that would bug me, but because not everybody can be Hamlet, there's not enough oxygen in a 26, 24-minute episode to give everybody full range of dynamic prowess. And I know, of course, I know that's not what you're saying that you expect. But there has to be something there to invest. Wrecker to me has always been someone that's comedic relief and someone to make me exhale, because when he's there, I feel they're safer, which is why the last couple episodes, twice he's almost died. And I thought, oh no, we know it's going to happen because of what happened in season 2, at the end of season 2. So take that for whatever it's worth.
No, those are good points. Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, Wrecker is there for comic relief. Like I said, maybe it's because he hasn't had his show with Omega. Then, if he had a chance to go through something and come out the other side with her as well, then maybe I'd feel a bit more friendly towards him. But
sure,
yeah,
interesting, very interesting. Well, is there anything else, Mason? Are there any points you want to bring up, both positive or things that maybe didn't work as well for you before we wrap things up?
No, but I do want to add one more thing onto that thing where you said about Hunter and Omega, Tech and Omega, and then Crosshair and Omega for this season. I think that every single episode is a fun episode with Wrecker and Omega.
I agree. Yeah, and that's a huge thing, and I think George would probably agree with us. Like, he wants us to have fun. I didn't have any fun watching Andor. I don't think you're supposed to have fun watching Andor, but it's a very different thing. We're in this amazing zeitgeist where you've got Star Wars for preschool kids with Young Jedi Adventures. You've got the Bad Batch, which is almost like a catch-all, and then you've got Andor, which is very, very mature audience. So it's pretty crazy, isn't it? Like, did you ever imagine, Neil, when we were growing up and embracing Star Wars, that it has such a wide range for different Star Wars palettes? It really is extraordinary.
It is. I mean, we are certainly living in a time that I just can't believe it's something new every year. When we, especially going through the dark ages when there was nothing before 99, apart from some excellent books and a couple of games. But I mean, we are spoiled with these riches, and having said that, I mean, I just love all of it. I know I'm being a little bit nitpicky about this one, but I'm still enjoying it. I sit down with my daughter. She loves it. We watch it together, and that's what Star Wars is about, is that pulling together, the bonding time. So I'm looking forward, obviously, to the Acolyte, I'm just very excited about that. I'm looking forward to the new Towels animation that coming out. They look really interesting. There's just some really cool stuff going on. The future looks very rosy. I'm still content, maybe because I'm getting older and maybe I'm an old man who shouts at clouds now, but I'm starting to see things that I would normally just enjoy without thinking too much, and I'm starting to get more nitpicky, but I push all that to the one side. I mean, I know when I eventually do get to go to Galaxy's Edge, I'm going to be crying like a baby because I think the emotion's going to get to me there. So
I wish I could see your face when you see the Falcon for the first time.
Oh, don't! I mean, I'm so excited
because as you know, it's 1:1 scale. I'll have to send you the link to the Coffee with Kenobi episode where I did an actual walkthrough of the entire thing, and I gave history and background on all of it. I don't think you should change at all. I love your perspective. I've always loved your perspective. Being smart and funny is there are worse things than being Neil Baker. I tell you what. So thank you for your honesty on that. I will say that season 2 is still my favorite episode or favorite season of the Bad Batch. No, I haven't seen it all yet. We haven't seen the final episode. I think season 2 was the peak of excellence, and I'm enjoying season 3. I still think that the Bad Batch is my second favorite animated series, right? Significantly below Star Wars Rebels, but Star Wars Rebels is just such a huge thing for me. It seems we've pretty well wrapped things up. I feel good about this conversation. So let's give our letter grades for the episode and final thoughts. Mason, the floor is yours.
Okay, my letter grade is just going to be a nice solid A for everything that Lucasfilm put into this. I think it was overall a great episode.
Thank you. All right, Neil, what about you?
I'm going to go A-. Yep, I enjoyed it a lot. And I don't know why I gave it a minus there, but it's because I'm an old man.
I'm also going to give it an A-, and I'm me.
You're a spring chicken.
I don't think we're that far off in age. So I give it an A-. I think, again, the excitement. This is pure Star Wars excitement. The entire thing, there's a lot of swashbuckling moments. There's really not so much hero stuff because they're always on the run, but with the different monsters, with the stealth of Omega and her being a source of comfort for these other kids and wondering what's going to happen. It's set up to be a really, really nice finale to an extraordinary series that I will deeply, deeply miss.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is...
It's been so much fun, as always, breaking it down with the two of you. I've certainly learned a lot from our discussion, and I hope you've all learned something as well, or at least we put some thoughts, and we hope you will continue the conversation with us. Please let us know, in the CWK Cafe, if you want to weigh in on your thoughts on the episode. We would certainly love to hear them. And before we go, Mason, where can people reach out to you if they want to ask you any Star Wars questions?
You can either ask my dad on Coffee with Kenobi, or you can meet me on the basketball court.
Let's do it. And Neil, where can people reach out to you? I highly recommend following Neil on Twitter. He's always a hoot.
Yeah, so that's at Nobby1138 on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook if you look for Neil Baker and then see that I'm friends with Dan. That's me. You won't find me on a basketball court. I'm way too short for that. But you might find me bowling somewhere, so you never know. And then in July, you'll find me at Galaxy's Edge.
I love it.
I love
it. As you should be. Well, after you do, I'd love to have you come back on and share your thoughts. It'd be great to hear what you think about it.
I'd love to come back, Dan. Thank you.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Move along.